Dela writes, my MVVs, welcome. Report has it that Aṣọ-Imọlẹ ritual, okay, this being, I think, the sixth ritual, pre-Ofarende ritual, it has been conducted for the for the jewel. It is called Aṣọ-Imọlẹ, okay. This will be, I think, the third Imole ritual that has been conducted for her. They say this Aṣọ-Imọlẹ ritual is conducted for the jewel in preparation for Ofarende. The jewel, they said, was wrapped in the cloth of ancestral light, a ritual reserved only for women loved by both heaven and the king. Yes, so this is what we are hearing, if the information is correct. Our people say when destiny is walking beside a person, even the ground adjusts itself. That was how the atmosphere felt on the night they performed the Aṣọ-Imọlẹ ritual for the jewel. Soft, heavy, charged, and yet strangely calm. As if everyone around the palace had accepted that something deeper than tradition was happening. People who moved around that evening walked more slowly than usual, not because anyone instructed them, but because something in their spirit knew that a major shift was unfolding. The jewel herself didn't even fully understand the weight of what was happening. She only knew that, of course, Adetutu had come to her again, okay? Explaining the full ritual and how it's going to happen. You are aware that the jewel is a dedicated Christian. She has not permitted herself to participate directly in traditional rites due to her faith, okay? Adetutu is always standing in her place physically, but spiritually, both the spiritual mantle, the blessing, the covering of Aṣọ-Imọlẹ would rest on the jewel alone. And so Adetutu had to stand again. It was, you know, strange, humbling. For the jewel, according to what she said, it was humbling, and most importantly, to see a woman like Adetutu bringing herself to stand in that place for her is something that she does not take for granted, and that was what she said after the ritual. She is not someone who chases title or ceremonies, okay? Everybody knows the jewel. They said even when the jewel was told by Adetutu that that ritual is reserved only for women loved by both heaven and the king, she didn't see herself the way they saw her. What she felt was a blend of nervousness and quiet surrender. She knew that the great lion, okay, was standing firm behind her. She knew heaven had never left her, but that didn't even remove the weight of knowing that entire bloodline, elders, priests, and custodians were acknowledging her existence in a way that no one could erase again. As we are hearing what is going on, they said that Adetutu went into the inner courtyard where the cloth was kept. Even the elders were unusually calm. No chest pounding, no chanting, no tension, just a silent, unspoken understanding that tonight was not for noise. Tonight, you know, that night was not for noise, but it was for alignment. Adetutu clothing had been carefully chosen according to instruction. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. Everything on her body represented purity, submission, and the willingness to carry someone else's mantle without corruption. She was not doing the ritual as Adetutu. She was doing it for the jewel. She stepped forward with her head bowed, her movement intentional, her spirit steady. She was not pretending to be the jewel, and she wasn't trying to impersonate her presence. She was just an intercessor, a bridge, a placeholder for procedure that required a physical representative. As the ritual began, the atmosphere thickened. Elders who had been shaken all we began because of Ogunjaye unrest, you know, stood unusually still. The cloth was brought forward. They are Aṣọ-Imọlẹ, white, soft, ancient, carrying a quiet glow that made people shift their gaze. It wasn't glowing with light like a lamp. It was glowing the way respect glows, and the way age glows, the way things that were never meant for casual eyes glow. It was a cloth wrapped only around 3 women in the last from what we are hearing in the last in the last 200 years, and each of these women had carried destinies that shaped the throne in ways, historians still whisper about. That night they were wrapping it for the jewel, but they were wrapping it on Adetutu. That was how they did it. That contrast told its own story. The jewel herself, miles from the deep inner chamber of the palace, sat quietly in her room praying. There was no drama in her voice, no fire, no panic, just quiet communion, asking God to align everything that must align, to block whatever needed to be blocked, to establish peace where confusion was trying to rise. She didn't need to see ritual to know the air was shifting. Something in her spirit tightened and relaxed at the same time. It felt like a door had opened somewhere far away, but the wind from the door was already touching her. Inside the palace, as Adetutu knelt, an elder placed the cloth over her shoulder. The moment it touched her, several people inhaled sharply. It wasn't a dramatic sound, just a small involuntary response to the weight of what they felt spiritually. Adetutu didn't shake, she didn't cry, she didn't fall. She simply breathed deeply, as if the presence of the jewel had settled heavily but gently on her spirit. It was clear she was carrying someone else's destiny, covering, and everyone respected the way she steadied herself. They wrapped the clothes slowly, first across her back, then over her shoulder, then across her chest, symbolizing acceptance and divine approval. Every fold carried meaning. Every adjustment represented an ancient truth, okay? The movement was so controlled and deliberate that even those watching forgot to blink for several seconds at a time. By the time the cloth was fully secured, Adetutu looked less like a representative and more like a vessel holding a sacred flame for someone chosen by heaven. And you see why the great lion had decided that it was Adetutu. Nobody would have done this better than Adetutu, because Adetutu made a decision that she was going to stand in for the jewel, and she has stood in for the jewel. Every time she was called, she came. When she was needed, she had gone to the UK to do some things. They sent a private jet. She came back to Ife because she knew that destiny was calling. She had to come. The great lion did not appear at the ritual ground, but those present could feel the authority of his silent approval. His acceptance was not loud, not boastful. It was the acceptance of a man who had seen torment, betrayal, spiritual danger, and divine rescue, and finally understood the jewel was not a coincidence in his life. She is a covenant. When the ritual concluded, Adetutu rose slowly, her movement careful so that the clothes wouldn't slip. The elder stepped backward, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Even the trees surrounding the courtyard seemed strangely still, as though the wind itself had pushed out of respect. They said Adetutu left and went back and met with the jewel. The jewel was very appreciative. They finished that ritual. They said this ritual happens to be a very important part of the ritual, the pre-Ofarende ritual. I told you that rituals will be coming over and over and over. Right now, we don't even know how many rituals are left before Ofarende cleansing and all of that. But, they said there's a few rituals left before Ofarende. And, everything seemed to be going well and working in, a way that, I think that God has approved for the jewel, because this happens to be her destiny. Going to bring you more update. Do not forget that these are all alleged, rumored, unverified information making the rounds on social media and shouldn't be seen as fact.